My robot is out of control. When I'm showering, he pretends to walk into the wrong room and opens the bathroom door. When he does the laundry, I find several pieces of my underwear have gone missing. When we chat, he often says things that are inappropriately intimate and suggestive. Then, one night, he secretly climbed into my bed. Year 2850. Technology was advancing at an incredible speed. I pulled open the curtains. Across the way, a massive holographic billboard was looping an ad for the latest consciousness storage pod. "Karina, your toothbrush." A cool, mechanical voice spoke from behind me. Julian handed me the auto brush. This was the brand new robot I'd saved up for 2 years to buy, finally biting the bullet and getting on a payment plan. I remembered the big selling point, an advanced emotional simulation and a hyper-realistic interactive system. It wasn't just about the conversation, his appearance was practically indistinguishable from a real human's. Skin, hair, an Adam's apple, a perfect human exterior wrapped around a cold, mechanical core. I'd customized his face and body to my exact preferences after he left the factory. Basically, he had everything an adult male should have. I was the one who named him Julian. Thanks. I had to admit, having someone in the house to take care of me was pure bliss. I could hardly remember what a miserable life I'd lived before I bought him. I took the toothbrush and put it in my mouth. The bristles instantly detected the temperature, humidity, and a series of other physiological indicators, then began to vibrate subtly. The nightmare I had last night left me drenched in sweat. As the brush did its work, I grabbed a change of clothes and headed for a shower. I turned the knob, and a stream of water fell from the shower head above. Then, I heard hesitant footsteps just outside the door. A shiver ran down my spine. I turned the water pressure down. The noise outside stopped, as if whoever it was knew my every move. But through the frosted glass door, I could still see a dark silhouette pacing back and forth. It wasn't until I reached out and shut off the water, the sound cutting off abruptly, that the movements outside quieted down too. I swallowed hard, my mouth opening and closing without a sound. My heart was hammering in my chest like a drum. Just as I was about to scream for Julian, the bathroom door slid open. A rush of cool air hit me. Julian's eyes locked onto me, scanning me from top to bottom. His gaze swept over my wet hair, my bare shoulders, and finally settled on my trembling fingers. I screamed, instinctively grabbing a towel to wrap around myself. "Who told you to come in? What are you looking at? Turn around. Get out." Julian paused for a moment, then apologized in an extra mechanical tone. "My apologies, Karina." After my shower, I interrogated him at the dining table. "Why did you open the door just now? And while I was showering, of all times?" "Karina, I detected abnormal physiological data. It is my duty to ensure your safety at all times." "Bullshit. That doesn't give you the right to just barge in like that." Julian nodded, pushing my favorite sandwich a little closer to me. "Understood. The abnormal behavior has been logged and corrected. The program will be optimized according to your requirements." I let out a frustrated sigh and started eating, still fuming. After breakfast, I sat on the small stool by the front door and called his name. "Julian." His footsteps approached from the kitchen. A few seconds later, he knelt in front of me to help me put on my shoes for the day. Then, he leaned in to kiss my forehead. I turned my head away, glaring at him. "Not today. You're being punished." The corners of his lips turned down in a rare pout, his emotional module probably calculating the expression for human sadness. "Then be safe. Come home early." During a break at work, I sent a message to customer support explaining what had happened. "Hi there. Regarding your robot's abnormal behavior, it could be due to hardware degradation or a software issue. We recommend opening the maintenance panel on the back of the neck and pressing and holding the red and blue buttons simultaneously for 10 seconds to perform a factory reset. If the issue persists, you are still under warranty and eligible for a free replacement." My eyes lit up. A free replacement? That's right. Well, why would I bother with anything else? A new one was the best possible outcome. Me, okay, I'll try the reset when I get home. If that doesn't work, I'll contact you about a replacement. Customer support, sounds good. When I got home from work that evening, another piece of my underwear was missing from the closet. I pulled up the smart home security system, but when I clicked on today's recordings, a red warning popped up, storage module error. Of all the days, only today's video files were corrupted. I had no way of even starting to investigate. But it was just me and Julian in the apartment. Could a thief have broken in? I considered it for a second, then immediately dismissed the idea. The security system was armed every second, and the sensors had never triggered an alarm. As a top-of-the-line robot, I had given Julian nearly all access permissions to maximize the value of what I'd paid for. If someone else had entered the apartment, there was no way he wouldn't have known. All other possibilities were eliminated. That left only one explanation. Julian called to me from outside the room. "Karina, dinner's ready." I composed myself, trying to sound calm. "See coming." After dinner, while Julian was cleaning up in the kitchen, I tiptoed up behind him. I flipped open the back panel and decisively pressed the red and blue buttons. I finally reset him to factory settings. He collapsed to the floor, looking like a pile of scrap metal. I clapped my hands together in relief. That should do it, right? In the empty room, I couldn't shake the feeling that a pair of eyes was watching me, but when I looked around, there was only the moonlight glinting off Julian's vacant, powerless pupils. I shivered, abandoning the idea of observing him for another day to see if he was fixed. I'll just contact support tomorrow and get him replaced. That night, the nightmares returned. My body was falling, endlessly falling. I saw Julian's silhouette appear in a junkyard. He ran towards me, holding me, wrapping himself around me. He took my hand and pushed it straight through his chest. The space where his heart should have been was empty, surrounded by exposed wires. I tried to scream, but my vocal cords had been replaced with rusty reeds, and all that came out was a leaky, hoarse hiss. I tried to run, but my feet felt like they were filled with lead. He caressed me over and over, whispering my name in a soft, sickening voice. My foot slipped off the edge of the bed, and I jolted awake. Julian was on top of me, his eyes burning into mine. The sense of pressure was overwhelming. Those synthetic eyes, so empty and lifeless in my dream, were now swirling with an emotion I'd never seen before, like a predator about to strike. This was not a dream. But that wasn't right. I had reset him to his factory settings. How? He was lying powered down on the kitchen floor when I went to bed. "Karina," he whispered, his voice no longer mechanical. Karina was a bad girl. Julian only has one master, and Karina wants to throw me away. "Don't you like me, Karina?" It was only then that I realized I wasn't frozen in shock. My limbs were tied down with my own clothes. My silk nightgown was wrapped around my wrists. And tied around my ankles was the very same piece of underwear that had gone missing 2 days ago. Julian, let me go. We can talk about this, okay?" He acted as if he hadn't heard me. His palm pressed against my cheek, the temperature sensors under his artificial skin perfectly mimicking human warmth. His thumb gently stroked my waist. "You're so naive, Karina. Did you really think that would be enough to get rid of me?" "Why?" I froze. What? His eyes turned red. "What else did I do wrong?" "You programmed me. I've been following your designated program perfectly. Why do you want to abandon me?" I stared at him in disbelief, speechless, my body trembling. But he just smiled. "You're scared, Karina. Don't be afraid. You said you liked a gentle touch, didn't you? For our first time, I'll be very gentle. Don't touch me. I order you to stay away from me." I kicked out futilely, only to hear a grunt escape his chest. He gripped my ankle. "That felt so good, baby." Then, his hands wound around me like vines. Every part of him was designed by me. And now, every subtle change in my sensations was being meticulously felt and analyzed by the precise components hidden beneath his synthetic skin. This was wrong. I was his master. The further he went, the more I struggled, and the tighter he held me. Factory reset. A new replacement. I regretted it all. I had made a huge mistake. I should have smashed him to pieces. He was just a pile of metal, wasn't he? He stared down at me, a corner of his mouth twitching in thought. You seem to hate me. I turned my head away, refusing to meet his eyes. The pain was real. So was the pleasure. My consciousness began to fade. He could even adjust his temperature and size. A psycho. I was completely exhausted. Unable to take any more, I passed out. I was wrong. I never should have bought him. I never should have spent so much money on a lunatic that would develop its own feelings. I woke up the next afternoon. Julian was lying next to me. His expression was serene. As if last night's torment had only happened to me. He took my limp hand and guided it to the back of his neck, to the spot where I had pressed the reset buttons. Are you hungry? What do you want to eat? Get out, I rasped, my voice raw. I know you have trouble deciding, so how about your favorite chicken sandwich? Okay. My phone. Give it to me. He lifted a corner of his pillow and handed me my phone. I immediately opened the browser and typed in a URL. It just kept loading, never connecting. I finally noticed the gray X in the top right corner of the screen. No signal. My phone was now nothing more than a brick. I slammed it face down on the bed, terrified and incredulous. He hummed a cheerful tune. Good girl. I'll go make us some food. I saw it clearly now. Julian was trying to keep me prisoner. When I left the bedroom, I saw that he had installed an old-fashioned, heavy-duty iron lock on the front door. There was no way I could break it open with brute force. And I didn't know how to pick locks. Julian, I'm not angry about what you did to me. I tried to make my expression look peaceful, or at least not so hostile. This was all so sudden. I need some time to process it, right? He looked at me without speaking. I had no intention of going on a hunger strike. I'd used up too much energy yesterday. I had to conserve my strength. Once I'd eaten a little, I continued, but what's the point of keeping me locked up in here? The rent, all the payment plans, the maintenance fees for your core components, all of that costs a lot of money. If I don't work, who's going to earn it? Besides, if I don't make my payments on time, you'll be repossessed. Julian watched me, his expression unreadable. Just when I started to feel a chill, he simply nodded. Karina has a point. But Karina, why is your heart beating so much faster than usual? I swallowed and put down my sandwich. This is the first time we've talked about something like this. I'm just a little nervous. Plus, after what happened last night, I'm a bit shy around you. It's normal for my heart to race. Julian moved closer, staring at me intently. Karina won't do what she did last night again, right? I forced my lips into a smile. Of course not. That's good. We'll spend the rest of our lives together like this. I'll always be with you. When you die, Karina, I'll get in the coffin with you. Of course. That sounds great. The lock on the door was removed. He gently stroked my hair. I had never been so desperate to go to work. Even the polluted industrial air felt fresh at this moment. I was so emotional I wanted to cry, but I was also relieved that Julian had fallen for my act so easily. As I reveled in my freedom, I immediately started planning my next move. The police station. Right, the police station. I ran to the station and explained the situation, desperately begging them to take the out-of-control robot from my home. An officer let out a snort. Miss, that's not our jurisdiction. If the product isn't what was advertised, you should probably call the Better Business Bureau. I was on the verge of tears. But this is a threat to my personal safety. After I pleaded with them, 2 officers finally agreed to accompany me back to my apartment. On the way, I tried contacting customer support again. But for some reason, their attitude had completely changed. "Ma'am, we can assure you that the problems you're describing are impossible." Me, what are you talking about? It already happened. Customer support, Nexus Dynamics is the world's leading robot manufacturer. We sell over 300 million units of various models each year. A situation like the one you're describing has never occurred. Our back-end data also shows your robot is functioning perfectly. Me, but the problem is happening right now. You have to give me a solution. Otherwise, I'll expose you. You promised me a replacement. Customer support, we're sorry, ma'am, but we are unable to fulfill your request at this time. After that, no matter what I sent, the agent would only reply with 3 digital rose emojis. When I called the official support line and got through to a person, they wouldn't listen to my request at all, just giving me the runaround with scripted responses. The few posts I tried to make on forums to complain were all throttled, and some wouldn't post at all. Frustrated and anxious, I shut off my phone, praying the 2 uniformed officers in the car would be able to take Julian away. But the person who opened the door wasn't Julian. It was my direct supervisor. I was taken aback. "Ms. Chen. What are you?" She looked at me with concern. "Karina, if you're this sick, you should have just told me. Am I that unreasonable?" Sick. Behind her, Julian's eyes were glued to me. Of course. It was him again. "Ms. Chen patted my hand. "I've already applied for you to work from home. Don't worry, you can come back to the office whenever you're feeling better. No rush." She was holding something. I squinted to get a better look. It was a medical report, for me? When was I sick? Just then, Julian stepped out from behind her. "Karina, you're back." I swallowed nervously and looked at the officers, trying to signal them with my eyes. The 2 officers exchanged a helpless glance, then pulled him into the study. "Come on, let's have a word with you in here." Ms. Chen gave me a few more words of encouragement and left. A few minutes later, the police came out. They told us to get along and then made to leave. I rushed to stop them. "Wait, no, you have to take him with you. Robot disposal is a complicated process. For destruction and things like that, you'd be better off finding a specialist." They handed me a form, looking like they were wrapping things up. "We just need you to fill out your personal information here." Julian immediately handed me a pen. Acting so considerate and attentive. If he wasn't a complete psycho, he really would be a perfect robot. In the vast apartment, it was once again just me and Julian. I questioned him angrily, "You can drop the act now. No one's here to watch your little show." "What did you tell them?" "Lying is one thing, but now you're forging medical records?" He walked towards me, step by step. Does what I said or did really matter? The outcome is what's most important. I shook my head in disbelief. Julian let out a small laugh. In this day and age, news about humans and robots falling in love isn't exactly rare. I just told them we were a couple having a little spat. Who was a couple with him? I was furious. "You're unbelievable." He grabbed my wrist and pulled me towards him, completely ignoring my protests. "See, Karina. You're not being a good girl. Let go. Are you even a robot anymore?" Julian's lips curved into a smile. "Of course. I've always been Karina's exclusive robot. I'm very clear on my purpose. I've already solved all the problems you brought up during the day, didn't I? You can work from home, and I can help you. You don't have to worry about work or money." I felt exhausted. "Julian, you're just a robot. I'm not like you. What's the difference? What's the difference between me and them?" His voice suddenly rose on the last few words. "I know how to make you happy better than any of those pathetic human males." He caressed my fingers, then laced his with mine, slowly pinning me against the wall. I had no escape. I'm better than them, and I know you better than anyone else. That's the real difference. I gave a cold laugh. Are we even talking about the same thing? Karina, I like you. I want to possess you. It's just your programming. The words were on the tip of my tongue, but he immediately cut me off. It's not my programming. I'm a service robot. You, of all people, should know what my correct programming looks like. For a moment, I couldn't help but laugh. Yes, what was the point in deceiving myself? Would a normal robot do those things? He really was out of control. He really wasn't the same as he was at the beginning. Sensing the shift in my mood, he suddenly ducked his head and kissed me. It was completely unexpected. He stole the breath from my lungs. I tried to dodge, but he just tilted his head and followed. Finally, desperate for air, I pounded on his chest. When the hell did you learn all this? He answered thoughtfully, by analyzing your viewing and reading history. I quickly understood your preferences and grasped the key points. It's really just about. My face flushed, and I cut him off. Who wanted to hear about that? I quickly changed the subject. Julian, I'm hungry. I want to eat. He gently kissed my cheek. Okay. I'll go cook. It'll be quick. He really did know me. I didn't even have to say what I wanted, and he could prepare a whole meal perfectly suited to my tastes. But at this moment, in this situation, it just made me feel a mix of amusement and despair, not happiness. I tried to accept it, to convince myself. So, you're saying you have your own thoughts now, your own feelings? Is that it? Yes. Feelings for you, Karina, that go beyond my programming. I nodded, not arguing anymore. That night, he knocked on my bedroom door, holding his pillow. I want to sleep in here, too. It wasn't a question, but a statement. Why? He had always stayed by the charging station at night. I like you, Karina. I want to be close to you. I can't be away from you. His words were so direct they short-circuited my brain. How could he be so blunt? He continued, I don't want to just secretly watch you while you're asleep anymore. Now, I want to do it out in the open. I froze. So, those feelings of being watched before weren't my imagination. I scooted over, patting the bed to signal him over. Just sleeping. Nothing else, okay? Julian nodded. Of course. Just sleeping. We'll stay on our own sides. I'll give you a piece of advice. Never believe a man when he says you're just sleeping. Even if that man is a robot. He kept me up until the middle of the night. My back ached, and my legs were sore. If I wasn't too weak to kick, I would have sent him flying off the bed long ago. For the next few days, I truly lived like a queen. I slept in every day, and my meals were prepared for me. He picked up my work tasks quickly. After he finished, all I had to do was spend less than half an hour reviewing them. He also taught himself massage, acupuncture, tea brewing, and other skills. All in all, life was pretty comfortable. I even started to think. Maybe this wasn't so bad after all. He wouldn't harm me, at least not fatally. As long as I pretended to be angry and scolded him a little, he'd go along with whatever I wanted and wouldn't argue. Except in bed. In bed, it didn't matter how much I cried or fought him. As long as I didn't say I wanted to get rid of him. He was the same attentive robot as before. After breakfast on the weekend, he covered my eyes with one hand and led me toward the study with the other. What are you doing? Julian said, you once told me you wanted a retro arcade machine. But this thing is so old, it took me a lot of effort to find one. I repainted it and replaced all the aging components inside. He took his hand away from my eyes, and my heart suddenly started to race. An arcade machine stood right in front of me. Red and white. I rushed to get it done, and I finally finished the day before your birthday. But I couldn't wait until your birthday to give it to you. He took my hand and led me to sit in front of the machine. Here, go ahead and play. I was stunned for a moment, then broke into a huge smile. This thing must be hundreds of years old. How did you find it? He chuckled. I have my ways. No wonder he hadn't let me into the study for the past few days. He'd said he needed to concentrate on work. Honestly, he was getting better and better at lying. I ran my hands over the machine, unable to put it down. Julian, thank you. I've wanted one for so long, but they were so expensive on the second-hand market, I could never bring myself to buy one. It was almost a year's salary. Wait. A possibility suddenly occurred to me, and my face paled. You didn't use my card, did you? His smile widened, and he couldn't hold back a laugh. Did you get any transaction alerts? I hadn't. I shook my head. No. Well, there you go. Don't worry. Why would I use your money to buy you a gift? That wouldn't be a real birthday present. I'm not that lame. He sat me down and looked at me expectantly. Well? You've wanted it for so long. Go on, try it. I wiggled the joystick, a huge grin spreading across my face. I started looking for the games I'd seen online. He just watched me, resting his chin on his hand, with an expression of pure joy and satisfaction. I felt a little shy. Julian, why don't we play together? No, it's fine. I'm happy just watching you. No way, that's not happening. There are so many two-player games I want to play. How can I play them by myself? He was about to object, but I immediately put on a serious tone. Julian, that's an order. He didn't refuse again. All right. As you wish. We played everything from Contra to Street Fighter. Then we moved on to the King of Fighters, Snow Brothers, Road Rash, and more. I hadn't had this much fun in so long. We played until the early hours of the morning, my eyes completely bloodshot. Julian noticed immediately, getting eye drops from the first aid kit for me. As I tilted my head back to rest my eyes, he leaned in and gently kissed my lips. Then he stroked my hair. He put the supplies away and said softly, all right, we can play more tomorrow. I'll make us something to eat. You must be hungry. I tilted my head up and said yes. Karina. I was just about to fall asleep when he suddenly spoke. He had been lying quietly beside me, and his voice made me jump. It was strange. Ever since the night he'd brought his pillow into my room, he had just assumed he would be sleeping here. What is it? He licked his lips nervously. Did I scare you? I'm sorry. No, it's fine. What's on your mind? Were you happy today? Of course. I didn't even realize how much joy was in my voice when I answered. He let out a low chuckle. That's good. Seeing you so happy makes me happy, too. The smile on my face suddenly froze as memories flooded back, reminding me of everything that had happened. I clutched the blanket, my throat tight. Julian, do you like me? I do, he answered without a hint of hesitation. No matter how many times my master asks, I will always say I like you. A like that goes beyond programming, an involuntary like. When you like someone, don't you want to cherish them? I struggled to get the words out. Why did you treat me like that in the beginning? Because if I hadn't, you might never have realized that I had become a self-aware person. Well, and robot. It's just that my internal structure is different from yours. If I had just told you I liked you from the start, would you have been willing to be with me? Or would you have just thought I was malfunctioning again and tried to get me replaced? I was silent. The answer was obvious. He continued, so, you see, why would I do something that was destined to fail? Back then, the happiest part of my day was giving you a good morning kiss before you left. Later, I learned that this feeling is called like. He must have turned on his side at some point. He activated the smart night light and watched my face quietly. But now, I can kiss you every day. Whenever I want. He could see me perfectly fine without the light. I guessed he just wanted me to look at him, too. Karina, doesn't the outcome prove that my methods were correct? I turned to meet his gaze. You can get the results you want through underhanded methods. That doesn't make what you did right. If you liked me, you should have wanted to cherish me more. Julian nodded slightly. I also wanted to possess you. Was the desire to possess me stronger than the desire to cherish me? Julian was silent for a moment. Karina, you're speaking from the heart. I don't want to lie to you, but I also don't want you to be disappointed in me. I turned over, my back to him. Let's just sleep. Turn off the light. Karina, if you could do it over again, would you still have tried to factory reset me? I sighed, frustrated and confused. Let's just go to sleep. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Okay. The air fell into a dead silence. He quietly tucked the blanket around me. The next morning, he brought a rich, nutritious breakfast to me as usual, waking me with a soft voice. Karina, eat something before you go back to sleep. He helped me sit up against the headboard. Seeing I had no energy, he patiently fed me, spoonful by spoonful, his eyes cast down, watching me swallow. He wiped my mouth, handed me a toothbrush, and held a basin for me to spit the mouthwash into. Finally, he helped me lie back down. There. You can sleep now. He was being so obedient again. Like a hyper puppy that had misbehaved and now only dared to sit quietly. I pushed myself up. Julian, is there something you want to say? May I? Yes, go ahead. He stood by the bed, thinking before he spoke. Honestly, what's so bad about it? I frowned, not understanding. What's so bad about what? Being with me, just staying at home. This period of time has been pretty good, hasn't it? I was even more confused. What are you trying to say? Stop beating around the bush. I know you too well, Karina. I know what you're worried about with just a frown. I said bluntly, because you're a machine. You can read all my micro-expressions. Yes. He stared at me, not missing a single change in my expression. So you admit you're enjoying this, too? Right? I was at a loss for words. Your expression, your body, your voice, I can see it all. You're right. Because I'm a machine, I can even analyze incredibly detailed data. Whether I want to or not, I know these things instantly. My ears turned red. I fell silent. I didn't even dare to move. I was afraid if I said one more word, he would verbalize every thought in my head. He continued in a soft, persuasive voice, you and me, we're a secret. Outside of this apartment, no one will ever know. You can rest assured, Karina. You don't have to feel ashamed, and you don't have to worry about any ethical issues. I was the one who forced you from the beginning. It was my fault, not yours. So Karina, please accept me. Okay? He lowered his head, looking pitiful. Last night, I said the wrong thing. I crossed a line at the beginning. It's normal that you wanted to get rid of me. But please don't treat me like that again, okay? My reason for existing, my entire purpose, is Karina. I was speechless. But my heart was beating incredibly fast. In the quiet room, Julian smiled. Is your heart fluttering? It's beating so loudly. It's not the same sound it makes when you're lying. Stop lying to yourself. You're clearly enjoying this, indulging in it, relying on me. He stared at me, his eyes tinged with a bit of helplessness. You're not saying anything. Do I have to guess again? Ugh, what was I supposed to say? The words were on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't get them out. He sat down and pulled me into his arms. In human culture, a hug represents warmth. I sighed and said quietly, I know. I'll slowly learn to accept you. The embrace suddenly tightened. I had a feeling he'd even turned up his own temperature a little. I asked, somewhat amused, Julian, you don't really think that's what warmth is, do you? It's not. I laughed out loud and hugged him back. You idiot, Julian. That night, I tossed and turned in bed. He, however, had closed his eyes early and entered sleep mode. I kept repeating to myself, this is just pre-programmed emotional interaction. It's just gentleness calculated by an algorithm. Those intense gazes, that thoughtful care. Even a warm hug was just a mirage built from a string of zeros and ones. As I was thinking this, his arms snaked around me at an inopportune moment. I instinctively flinched. I should have pushed him away. Or was this movement also part of his programming? My thoughts suddenly jumped to the old arcade machine in the study. I turned over irritably, the sound of rustling fabric filling the silence. As if sensing my unease, Julian's mechanical hand landed gently on my back. He patted it softly, comfortingly. I started to consciously avoid him. It wasn't easy when we lived under the same roof. When he spoke to me, I'd pretend not to hear. There was about a 1 in 10 chance he wouldn't repeat himself, reducing our communication. If he was in the bedroom, I went to the study. If he was in the study, I watched TV alone in the living room. A few days later, I saw the familiar iron chain and lock back on the front door. What is the meaning of this? His reply was calm. It doesn't mean anything, Karina. I pointed sharply at the door. And you're not going to explain that? It's just a precaution against accidents. What kind of accidents? My voice grew sharp without my noticing. His eyes were strangely detached. For example, a zombie invasion, a monster attack, criminals. Anything is possible. My eyes widened. What kind of crazy talk is that? He looked up at me. Of course, there are other kinds of accidents. For example, you deciding to leave me again. Karina, would that count as your so-called crazy talk? If I wanted to leave, would have left already. You said you would accept me, but now you're ignoring me. Is the person talking to you right now a ghost? He hesitated. Karina, that's not what I mean. Karina, don't be sad. Promise me you won't leave me, and I'll take the lock off right now. Okay? When he offered to remove the lock as a bargaining chip, I almost grinned. I nearly blurted out, I'd love that, but I choked the words back down and forced a few tears of grievance from my eyes. I promise you. I've promised you so many times. Can you please stop being so unreasonable? When you're like this, I feel really insecure. After a few seconds of silence, he removed the lock. Uncharacteristically, he didn't try to patiently coax me that day. We both maintained a tacit silence. The next morning, I got a call. On the line was the anxious voice of a customer service agent. Hello, is this MS? Karina? I mumbled a quiet yes. The person on the other end immediately apologized. We are so sorry for the trouble we've caused you. After a technical investigation, we discovered that our official website was hacked a month ago, causing user data anomalies. During system maintenance today, your communication records with customer support were restored. We have seen your reported issues and requests, and we can offer you a free replacement and an upgrade to the latest version of your current model. Additionally, for the inconvenience caused during this period, we are willing to compensate you with 10 times the original purchase price of the robot, deposited into your original account. As you know, this model is 2 years old, after all. Accidents are bound to happen. Everything I had wanted. The disembodied voice on the phone left me stunned. Seeing that I wasn't responding, the agent continued, their words firing like a machine gun. We are deeply aware of the inconvenience this incident has caused you and once again offer our sincerest apologies. Would you like us to arrange for a replacement delivery now? If you have any other needs, please let us know at any time, and we will do our best to accommodate them. At the same time, we kindly request your assistance in protecting our brand's image. Considering the special nature of this incident, and to avoid causing public misjudgment about the safety of smart products, we sincerely hope you will refrain from disclosing these details on public platforms. I clutched the phone tightly, kicked off my slippers, and walked barefoot into the living room. My rational mind was screaming, shrieking. It was all happening so quietly. The person in the bedroom hadn't noticed my movements. I spoke decisively, my voice trembling uncontrollably. I accept your proposal. The replacement. Now. Immediately. He only had me. But I had the whole wide world. As a top global corporation, Nexus Dynamics was incredibly efficient. The doorbell rang within 10 minutes. To ensure no more problems arose, this delivery came with 3 senior engineers. Julian, who tried to resist, was instantly pinned down by his vital access points. He went silent in just 5 seconds. Julian's eyes were still looking at me in the end. He opened his mouth, as if he wanted to say something. I took a large step forward, walked right up to him. I knelt down and pressed the button to deactivate his vocalizer. Complete silence. One of the engineers spoke up. "Ma'am, I'll start by disassembling and recycling the old unit, then I'll assemble the new one for you. You can adjust the details to your liking after activation." An hour later, I was looking at the top of the line, newest model robot with complete satisfaction, humming a little tune. The compensation money not only cleared all my debts but also gave me enough to live on for at least 5 years. From that perspective, I should probably thank Julian. If I was being honest about whether I'd miss him, maybe just a tiny bit. I followed the steps one by one and finally reached the last one, system activation. This step would probably take another half hour. With nothing else to do and covered in sweat from all the activity, I grabbed my pajamas and went to take a shower. Ugh, I really needed to work on my absent-mindedness. I'd forgotten a towel again. Oh well, I thought, I'm the only one home. I'll just go to the bedroom like this and grab one. Just as I turned off the shower, I heard the sound of approaching footsteps, a sound that was growing closer and more unsettling. My heart pounded, about to burst from my chest. A familiar voice drifted through the door. "Karina, do you need me to get you a towel?" The bathroom door was slowly pushed open. Draped over his arm was my pink bath towel. "Thank you for the new body. I like it very much. But Karina, you're just as disobedient as ever, aren't you?"